G'day, here we are outside the 737-800 NG simulator in my back shed, and we're just about to start a flight from across the Andes from Santiago through to Argentina, Buenos Aries. So these are the flight planning instruments that we use here, the charts that show us the correct route across the Andes. We can plan it out in one of these other programs, and also the instructor station here where we can plan it out, finally plan it out into a form that we can send directly to the FMC, which is the flight management computer, back in the cockpit here. So we do all our weights and balances and so on, plan out the flight here, send it to the cockpit, and then we can do the flight across the Andes. So it's only about a 2-hour flight, I suppose, but we will plan that out properly, and we'll know exactly how we should go across the mountains there. And behind me here, we're at gate 22 at Santiago International Airport. It's an international flight, even though it's just across the Andes. It's going from Chile to Argentina, which is not an internal flight. So once we've planned it out, I'll see you in the cockpit, and away we go. Thank you. Right, before we get into the cockpit, we'll plan out the flight totally, and we're in Navigraph charts at the moment, which shows our route across the Andes from SCEL, probably runway 35 at this stage. 35 right, and across the Andes to Buenos Aries, and it shows our complete route up the top here with the approach and the ILS approach, and we can pull up our charts to see the two runways here, right and left, and the SID route, the standard instrument departure route, the SID route, for those runways. We can change the runway up the top here and change it to anything we want, really. So let's see how this looks. So there's the charts for the SID, and we can change the runway here, changing that from 35 down. We'll go down and we'll use 17 left, which gives us a different departure, which is the Alba 4C, and as you can see, the charts are here for the Alba 4C. And going across to Buenos Aries, we've got the standard arrival, which is the purple line here, and we can pull up the chart for that, overlay it onto that, and it'll give us our waypoints and so on for the that standard arrival, which is in green. And then doing the approach, the ILS approach, the purple line there, we've got the charts also for that, which overlays onto the map, and from that we can assess the glide slope, the ILS DME, and the runway heading, and it also gives us our approach profile right down to the runway. So there's the maps and so on that we can use for initially setting out the route. Then we go over to the Professional Flight Planning X, which we use to actually work out and plan the route. We're going to set this as QF045, and it's going to go from SCEL, which is over here. It shows it as the airport at Santiago, across to SAEZ, which is Buenos Aries. And we put in the times and so on, the date, time for the scheduled flight, whatever we need in there, and the estimated flight time, which is 2 hours. We go down further and we put in the registration and what aircraft it is. This is in our flight plan briefings. And then we plan the flight itself. So we've got it all there, and go down to the payload. We can add how many adults, how many children, infants, the baggage, etc., cargo if necessary. In this particular case, I don't think we're carrying much cargo. And the actual route, we can bring that up, find the actual route, and there it is on the right, with all the waypoints coming across to Buenos Aires. Alternate airports, we're not going to put one in for this flight. Not really necessary because the weather's fine, and so on. So then we compute that, and that gives us all the relevant information for the flight. You can see it over on the right here, and also we can check out the summary of the flight with all the weights and the timings for the fuel, etc. And we can then look at releasing the flight. Once the flight is released, we can look at the summary again, check it all out, the official flight plan, there it is there, with all the relevant information we need, and all the waypoints, etc. This is what we would use in the cockpit as a virtually a backup to the main flight management computer, but we also put information from this into the computer as well. Air traffic control bits and pieces, the weather, which is the actual weather, which we've downloaded, any NOTAMs that are applicable. We have the weather chart or the wind charts for en route, and any messages that need to be looked at as well. As it says there, we haven't got a destination alternate because we haven't put one in. We can print the flight plan also. We send it to TopCat, which is our weight and balance takeoff and a landing performance instrument. We can actually set the exact number of passengers here. It varies depending on wants and needs. It sets up the landing weights and stab trim, etc., stabilizer trim, etc. We can fine tune the fuel on board, and then we go to the takeoff panel, which we set the runway, which gives us all our lengths, widths, headings, etc. Wet, dry, we compute that, and the program computes all the relevant information there, and gives us our limit weights and so on, and our climb computations. We go to the landing computations as well, and do the same thing. And then we can download the actual weather, current weather, and put that into the flight plan as well. And there it is. We can send that via ACARS to the cockpit, and that will print out in the cockpit. Not connected at the moment, but when it is connected, that will print out in the cockpit for use in the flight planning. It can also produce a takeoff and landing report, which again we can print out or send to the cockpit via ACARS. So that just about sums up how we plan the flight. It's fairly sketchy, but we can also export that to the various programs, and mainly we can export that to the cockpit to prepared version 4 in this case, and it's all ready to go. We shall see you in the cockpit. Santiago, Chile. Our route will be from Santiago across to Buenos Aires. We're doing a company route. We'll be taking off on runway 17 left. And our flight number is QF 045. Activate that. And I know from our flight planning we've got 74.5 tonne. Our reserves will be 1. Cost index will go in, and we're cruising at 35,000 feet today. Outside air temperature we'll get from our weather report. Okay. Weather for the actual weather report SCEL. And we'll send that off. That should come through on our printer very shortly. Weather, and we'll print that out. Right. Right, our temperature there at the moment is 11, but I know it's going to be 21 today. Flat's 5 today.
Too low, terrain. Too low, gear. Too low, flaps. Too low, terrain. Glide slope. Bank angle, plus 100. Minimum 50. 40.
Hello, Captain. We're ready for pushback.
We are ready for pushback.
Locking gear. Departure check completed. Bypass pin inserted. Release parking brakes.
Parking brakes are released.
All engines clear. Start at will.
Starting engine 2.
TCAS test pass.
Red and white exit signs. Now would be a good time to take a moment and locate the two exits nearest you, keeping in mind that your nearest exit may be behind you. All doors are equipped with evacuation slide rafts, which may be detached and used as flotation.
TCAS test pass.
Evacuation is necessary.